I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is July 16th, 2025. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. Although I know you've tapped the notification bell many times, I know you've subscribed and done all of the things I've been requesting of you. Why don't you double check? Because you never know about the ghosts in the machine who might unsubscribe you, thus leaving you as 62.7% of you are non-subscribed viewers. Click the button. Let's see what happens. Big show for you today. We're going to be talking a little bit about Joe Rogan, about Donald Trump, about Adam Schiff, about an Autopen that used to be president. We're going to talk a bit about the DOGE cuts, which thanks to J.D. Vance breaking the tiebreaker will actually go through. We got a little bit on the lizard man at the end, and then Bobby Kennedy. So let's just dive right in. I thought this would be an interesting way to start because you remember the day before the election, if your memory can go all the way back, if you can reverse the machine and go all the way back to last November, the day before the election, Joe Rogan interviewed Donald Trump, and it wasn't until that day, or maybe it was 2 days before the election that he interviewed him, and then it wasn't until the day before the election that Rogan officially endorsed Trump, finally, after being kind of poked and prodded and needled and everything else. But of course, he did ultimately endorsed Trump, and then Trump won, and here we are, and there's a lot of good stuff happening in the world, clearly. But I thought this was interesting. He went on a podcast on Gary Brecka's show and talked about why he actually finally interviewed Trump after being pushed and canoodled and asked to do it for years, why he finally did it so late in the game.
There's a bunch of things that happened. First of all, there was the lawfare. There was these lawsuits that they were trying to pin on him. They were trying to convict him and turn him into a felon, and they were doing it so blatantly and obviously. And people were cheering it on. He's a convicted felon. Like, hey, they can do that to you. Do you understand that? Yeah, if they can do that to a former president who's rich as they can do that to him. They can do that to you too. You can't cheer this on.
That was kind of the shift. You're sitting back watching this.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't let this just.
Well, it's also, there's no real conversations with him where you're just treating him like a human being. Like everything, he's being grilled and then everything's taken out of context. And I'm seeing them being taken out of context on the campaign trail. And like, it was just gross. It was just so anti-American. Like if you're an American and you believe in our justice system, and if you believe in our system of electing representatives, it should be the best people should have this opportunity to express what their plan is. This is what I want to do. This is where I stand on the issues. This is how I think I could pull it off. We were getting one side that was radically being supported by almost all of mainstream media except Fox News.
Yeah.
and then the other side that is just, it was just un-American.
Okay, so it's not that Rogan is sort of reinventing the wheel there or saying anything radically interesting, other than the part that I think is interesting is that he's basically admitting they just, by their sheer awfulness, pushed him into doing it. He's not sitting there like, I really wanted to sit down with the guy and find out more about him and all of these things. It was only because the machine and the mainstream media and the lawfare and everything else was so slanted against Trump that he finally was like, I will do it. And then it wasn't until he actually sat down with the guy, I think within 24 hours, if I'm not mistaken, he then endorsed him, and then Trump went on to win the election. You know, interestingly, on a personal note, it wasn't until I met Donald Trump a couple of years before and had that chat with him. I won't repeat the whole thing. You've probably heard me talk about it, or you could find the videos, where I saw this other side of him, and that kind of helped me get there too. And it's interesting because then when you hear video of Bobby Kennedy, and we're going to end with one today of Bobby Kennedy talking about Trump, all of these people, once they can see through the fog of all the things they say about Trump, and by extension, all the things they now say about all of us, then you realize that there's actually a good human there. But anyway, the entire machine was crashing against him. And one of the leaders of that, obviously, was Congressman Adam Schiff from California, who was one of the leaders on the Russia hoax and the Russia collusion. And then, of course, there was all the other stuff as it related to Trump's businesses, and he got a loan that he inflated the value of his properties, which isn't even how it worked, and blah, 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 all of this stuff. So I want to show you a quick compilation of Schiff, who was accusing Donald Trump of lying about all sorts of things, a whole compilation right now of Schiff lying about things, and then we'll connect this to Joe Biden's Autopen.
There is circumstantial evidence of collusion.
There is more than circumstantial evidence.
I think there is direct evidence.
There is evidence that is not circumstantial.
There's abundant evidence of collusion. Yes, there's ample evidence of collusion in plain sight.
According to these transcripts he's been hiding all this time, Schiff was hearing the exact opposite.
Just released interview transcripts embarrassing to Schiff because look at this. The former DNI under President Obama, James Clapper, quote, "I never saw any direct empirical evidence that the Trump campaign or someone in it was plotting, conspiring with the Russians."
2017, Samantha Power testified she was not in possession of any of the evidence. Susan Rice said there was no smoking evidence. Yates herself concluded no collusion at all.
They would leave the closed-door session, go on TV, and say something completely different.
The whole thing was orchestrated and set up within the FBI, Clapper, Brennan, and in the Oval Office meeting that day with President Obama.
God, really, I love those throwback videos and especially those quick compilations, but it's like you see some of those people and you're like, man, these really were the bad guys. Anyway, the reason we're showing you this to the backdrop of the Rogan thing, the reason we're showing you the Schiff thing. So you pushed a guy like Joe Rogan not only into interviewing Donald Trump, and then now you're all talking about how the left needs their own Joe Rogan. You pushed Rogan into doing it in the first place, and you pushed him basically into endorsing Donald Trump. And it was because of the lies of a guy like Adam Schiff, who was accusing Donald Trump of being a liar. Well, now there's some more interesting stuff coming out about the president, who in effect was just an Autopen. Listen to this from the Sacramento Bee. President Joe Biden on Monday, so you know about this, obviously. This is from the pardon time, a couple months back. President Joe Biden on Monday issued preemptive pardons to Senator Adam Schiff and other members of Congress and their staff who investigated the January 6, 2021 Capitol riots. Schiff was an outspoken House member at the time and part of the committee that probed the insurrection. But he added, "I certainly understand why President Biden believed he needed to take this step in light of the persistent and baseless threats issued by Donald Trump and individuals who are now some of his law enforcement nominees." Biden left office at noon Eastern time on Monday. In the pre-dawn hours, he also issued pardons to retired General Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Anthony Fauci, the former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and staff from the House committee. So that was obviously back in January, just as Biden is walking out. And we showed you the video yesterday of how all of these pardons were signed by the Autopen, and they look exactly the same because the Autopen just has one signature, which is then, put onto the document, just like you were copying something or printing something. Now, the problem with all of this, of course, is that as we find out more about how Joe Biden was being hidden from people, and that they weren't allowing him to have meetings, and that he often didn't know you can't even say that he didn't know what he was signing. He didn't know what was being signed with his name, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, you've got a serious scandal there. Listen to Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan talking about how 4,000 pardons were signed. It's not just the big boys we're talking about here. Some of those names you recognize, like Fauci and Schiff. 4,000 pardons were signed by Autopen, and of course, the mainstream media covered it up.
Well, yeah, he said there was a process that they had in place, and that he would delegate authority based on certain parameters they'd set up in this whatever this process was. And of course, that the background is we know he wasn't up to the task, and that was obvious, even though the press told us all the time he was. And now, of course, they've told us something different. And Jake Tapper's making money off of telling us that there was something different going on. I do think, again, this whole thing just underscores how the left operates. The left will tell a lie. Joe Biden was just fine. Mainstream media will report the lie. Big tech will amplify the lie. And then when you tell the truth, they call you names. I think we continue to dig, and who knows, maybe someone will come to, you know what? I know so-and-so was given a pardon and they didn't meet the parameters, and Joe Biden never, and short of that, I think it's going to be difficult. Now, he did sign, my understanding is he did sign one personally. He did sign one pardon personally.
Hunters, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. When it came to his family, his direct family, his son, he was able to sign that one. It was the other 3,999 or whatever the number was.
Exactly.
That it was not done with his actual.
Right. So this idea that he auto-penned all of these except for his son, did he even know they used the auto-pen on the other ones? Did he request, hey, it's my last day? Like, did he have sudden total recall and was like, must sign Biden, Hunter Biden, pardon, blah, 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 blah. But there obviously is a fairly big scandal happening here. And here is Donald Trump talking about how Joe Biden had no freaking idea what he was doing.
Look, the Autopen, I think, is maybe one of the biggest scandals that we've had in 50 to 100 years. This is a tremendous scandal. And I know the people on the other side of the, see that desk, that Resolute desk? Unfortunately, he used it before me. But, you know, we have our choice of 7 desks. They're all beautiful. But I chose the Resolute, and so did he, unfortunately. But the people on the other side of the Resolute desk, I know them. Lisa, the whole group, and they're no good. They're sick people. And I guarantee you he knew nothing about what he was signing. I guarantee it.
Just for context, what he's talking about there with Lisa and the sick people are the people that were likely in charge of the Autopen. And you just don't need analysis on this or some breaking document to show you that Joe Biden had no idea. We just know he did not know what he was doing and that the Autopen was absolutely being abused. And Trump is right. Like, what could be a bigger scandal? Like, there are scandals. COVID has an endless list of scandals around it, what they did to all of us and the people who didn't get to say goodbye to loved ones and what they did to kids and forcing people to be injected and forcing people out of work and all, like massive, massive, endless scandal that likely, unless they eventually get Fauci, which we talked about yesterday, likely nobody really pays for. But what could possibly, in an American sense, be a bigger scandal than the president of the United States actually not being the president? It would be hard to come up with it in a sci-fi movie, right? Listen to this from Eric Daughtry. Breaking, the Trump White House is now investigating a whopping 1 million documents on President Biden's use of the Autopen per Fox. The scandal is deepening. This comes as it was revealed in the New York Times that Biden's staffers explicitly used an Autopen for the last-minute pardons. And okay, so you might be going, Dave, all right, we've talked about this before. What's the point today? Well, it turns out that Adam Schiff, who had been leading much of the charge to impeach Donald Trump and launder the lies through the system, you know, I really liked what Jim Jordan said there. You know, it's like basically they lie, then they get the media to amplify the lie, and then they, in essence, get, I'm slightly paraphrasing, they get big tech to like super amplify it, right? To put it on steroids. That's basically how the lies get laundered through the system. Well, it turns out that Adam Schiff, there's now a criminal referral looking into some mortgage fraud as it relates to Adam Schiff, which is sort of hilarious because, as you may remember, one of the things that they tried to get Donald Trump on, and actually they did to some extent, was that he had faked documents on mortgage forms so that he could get bigger loans, even though the loans were fully paid back. And banks have to do their due diligence, just like if you were getting a mortgage right now, you can't just write down, I make $5 million a year, and the bank looks at it and like, oh my God, that guy makes $5 million a year, let's give him a $3 million loan. No, they do due diligence. They do some check on that. So Trump literally paid the loans back, but now Schiff is being accused in a criminal referral of the exact thing that he accused Trump of.
Administration is corrupt. No one, not even a president, is above the law.
Well, we have a Fox News alert. The Angle has exclusively obtained the criminal referral for Democrat Senator Adam Schiff. It shows the underlying conduct described could result in claims of mortgage fraud. The referral submitted to the DOJ by Housing Director Bill Pulte alleges that Schiff has, in multiple instances, falsified bank documents and property records to acquire more favorable loan terms, impacting payments from 2003 to 2019 for a Potomac, Maryland-based property. Schiff owns a home in California and another in Maryland. Well, perhaps, when the Democrats decided to have Mr. High and Mighty Adam Schiff head an impeachment witch hunt against Trump, they should have done their due diligence, not just on their absurd allegations, but on their own chairman.
All right, so do you get what's going on here? Literally the same thing that Trump was being accused of Russia. That's most of Schiff's energy was focused on that. But as it pertains to the New York business practices, this is the exact same thing. They said that Donald Trump was falsifying documents to get bigger loans, inflating the value of things so he could get bigger loans. As I said, and she just referred to it, like the banks are supposed to do the due diligence. Any one of you, I'm sure most of anyone that's a homeowner here, you probably have a mortgage, right? I have a mortgage. You can't just make up a number. Like you put down what your honest numbers are. Yeah, you could try to make up a number, but if the bank is doing its job, it's going to literally look at your accounts and be like, does that money exist? Do these other properties that they claim to have exist, et cetera, et cetera? But apparently, I'd like to know basically who is lending Adam Schiff money, because if this is true, I guess you're allowed to falsify documents and they're going to give you a bigger loan than you deserve. Anyway, we'll put a pin in that for now, but I would just say to all of these people that are always accusing all of us, and particularly Donald Trump, but then it's by extension, it's us, of all of the horrible things, guys, get a mirror. CB Distillery, and then more on the other side. Are you guys still tossing and turning at night, feeling on edge during the day? Let me tell you about CBD from CB Distillery. Millions are turning to their CBD, and for good reason. In fact, over 90% of customers report better sleep. But it doesn't stop there. CB Distillery offers targeted formulas for sleep, stress, mood, and post-workout pain, all made with premium, clean ingredients. No fillers, just pure, high-quality CBD. With over 2 million satisfied customers and a 100% money-back guarantee, CB Distillery is a brand you can trust. So if you're struggling with sleep, stress, or other wellness concerns and haven't found relief, join the millions making the switch. For a limited time, save 25% off your entire purchase. Just visit cbdistillery.com and use promo code Rubin. That's cbdistillery.com, promo code Rubin. Product availability may vary by state regulations. All right, again, I want to reiterate, like you might be watching the Schiff thing and even go, all right, if he did this mortgage thing, like who kind of cares about it? There's so many other things going on. The reason I sort of wanted to start with that, also to the backdrop of the Rogan thing, is if all of these people would stop going after Trump relentlessly, thus forcing people like Joe Rogan into supporting Trump, then you wouldn't have the headache that you have at the moment. The irony of your headache, though, is that Donald Trump is doing a tremendous amount of good stuff. And if you guys could just get over your Trump derangement syndrome and get on board loving America, you might look at the border and realize it's better. You might look at the trade deals and realize they're better. You might look at the at least prospects for peace in the Middle East and see that it's better. The attempt at least to wrap up Russia, Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera. But let's get to some specifics on that. Here's Bret Baier on Fox talking about how June is the second month with 0 releases into the United States, illegal releases, that is, meaning where they catch people. These aren't just the people that walk through that they have no record of, which we know there were a gajillion of them. These are the people that we used to catch. We'd catch them and then be like, all right, go and just, could you check in with us in like a year, and here's a phone and maybe some cash and here's the map to Chicago. Take a look.
Also tonight, new border data for the month of June highlights the lowest month of encounters ever recorded. Customs and Border Protection says it is the second month in a row of 0 releases of illegal aliens into the U.S., compared to almost 28,000 releases in June of last year.
That picture right there, that might be the living embodiment of decline is a choice. We let in people and didn't track a certain percentage of them, of the vast majority of them, and then sometimes we literally caught them. That's what these numbers are referring to. The people that we caught, we processed, we got some sort of name and number, and then we still let them in. Well, that is over. And as I always say, as it pertains to this, the bigger thing than what we're doing at the border, maybe physically, is the signal we have sent out to the world. Like, do you think there's a lot of people right now? You think there's Chinese nationals trying to go through South America right now, like on their way to America, like, let's do it? Do you think there's a lot of Mexicans right now just like, okay, let's just wander through? No, the signal has been sent out. You can't do it. You're going to be arrested, or worse. Or the Mexicans are actually doing a better job at their side of the border and everything else. So we actually are fixing things. And when you don't fix things, and you just allow all sorts of people with all sorts of beliefs to come in and not integrate into society, well, you will get what you get right here, which this is from a funeral. So I don't know what happened to the person in Minneapolis that died. So this has nothing to do with, I'm not judging the person who died. But tell me, this is a funeral in Minneapolis over the last couple of days, does this feel like America? Does this feel like the project that the founders planned? Does this feel like the assimilation and melting pot that we all grew up with? You tell me.
Go please mark out once we bury them. Once we bury them, inshallah, then we'll go ahead and open for the sisters. Please go back, sisters. Please.
You tell me, right? I'm not passing judgment on the person that died. I'm not passing judgment on any specific person there. But when you import all sorts of people that seem to want to bring their culture and dominate your culture, you might have a problem over time. And unfortunately, what you idiots did via President by Autopen and lies and obfuscations and telling us we don't see what we actually see with our own eyes as people are pouring over the border, you end up creating a situation where then when we start doing something about it, when we elect a guy like Donald Trump who ran on cleaning it up, and then he actually is cleaning it up, you are even more apoplectic. But it's your fault in the first place for allowing it to happen. And I want to show you this example. You know, I'm always 50-50 on should we show actors who just say stupid things, but I thought this one offered a little bit of insight into just how the average person on the left thinks right now. This is actor, comedian John Leguizamo. He's on Bill Maher's Club Random podcast, talking about how there's plenty of room for illegals in America, which is not the point. I'll elaborate on that after, but take a look.
But, I mean, part of this is a backlash to how badly Biden handled the immigration situation. It can't just be like come one, come all, which
Dude,
it was.
There's plenty of room here, and we need
room.
There's plenty of room in America. Come on, there's not a lack of room in America.
But it's never about room. It's about resources and about like having countries have to have a border. It just can't be. I mean, they've done surveys and something like 200 million people around the world, when asked, would you come to America if you could? Yes, I would. Why wouldn't they? Lots of countries, are holes,
right?
And they would love to be here. You can't
I'm
just let
not right. No, right. The places aren't holes, but
well, they are. And that's why they want to come.
And it's usually because of America, what America's done.
Okay, I know, yes. Everything is America's fault. Nobody has any sort of control over their lives or anything else. Everything's America's fault. So that's just like a standard lefty one. But this like simple notion of plenty of room, you know, this is one of those things, what I always say with the left and the thin veneer, right? They've got this thin veneer that either seems tolerant or pleasant or something else. And right beneath that is something nasty or just not very bright. And in this case, I would say, Leguizamo, you're just not very bright. Like, do we have enough room? If you're talking about physical room, is America a huge country? And are there acres and thousands of acres in the middle of the country that more people could live in? That probably is true. So that's the thin veneer. But the other part is what Bill started to talk about. First off, resources. Do we have enough resources for these people? And what jobs will they have to the backdrop of, as I keep saying, automation, which is going to eliminate a lot of their jobs. And the fact that a certain set of current Americans are going to have to pay for those resources. That's one part. And then Bill, of course, is totally right on the border part. So we've already illustrated that you have a border or you don't. You have a country or you don't. That was what Donald Trump was saying 10 years ago. What Bill didn't get to there is the most important part, of course, which is culture, which is, are you someone who is coming here for the right reasons? That doesn't mean you automatically get in. But if you are coming here, do you believe in the American dream? Do you believe in human liberty and God-given rights and limited government? Do you believe in those things? Is that really important to you? And will you then fold into America, not demand that America bow to you? And we have done this so backwards for so long that Bill actually is right when he's talking about if you want to call it an overreaction now, that a lot of people are just like, fuck it, get them all out. And the reason they are is because you guys gave us nothing to work with. You gave us absolutely nothing to work with. I want to show you this tweet and image. This is from the official Homeland Security account, DHS.gov on X. They took a New York Times headline. It's an opinion piece that was written a day or two ago. I was one of Biden's border advisors. Here's how to fix our immigration system. And they wrote above it, I was Humpty Dumpty. Here's how to sit on a wall. I mean, how profoundly ridiculous. Sorry, can you put that up one more time? How profoundly ridiculous. And this is so perfect for the New York Times, that they would take someone, I was one of Biden's border advisors. Here's how to fix our immigration system. You were one of the advisors. You literally decimated, you removed the wall. You allowed all of these people to come in, and now you have the temerity, you have the audacity, you have the balls to write a piece in the New York Times, which is all the news that's fit to make up, so I guess that's why you did it, to tell us how to fix the immigration problem. Absolutely ridiculous. And now this was actually very refreshing when I saw this video this morning. Do you guys remember Vivek Ramaswamy? He really, I mean, this is a guy who burned so freaking hot. I've had him on the show many times. I like Vivek. We had a little tension between us when he was going after DeSantis in ways that I didn't think were on the total up and up, but we totally buried the hatchet, and I've had him in studio since then even. But anyway, then there was, we remember Christmas week, there was the huge fight on the right over the H-1B visa program. And Vivek got into a lot of hot water with some of his comments. And basically, he was supposed to co-lead DOGE with Elon, and they got him out of that. And he pretty much disappeared. He's now running for governor of Ohio. But it's an interesting, we'll get to the good stuff that he put out here in just a sec. It's just an interesting thing what happens. Everyone was like, man, this is the future star. Like, he could be the guy after Trump. A lot of people wanted him to be the VP. He has this one issue over Christmas week, largely is just kicked out of the national conversation. Now he's running in Ohio. So I hadn't seen a video of him in it could be 3-4 months. I rarely see him on Twitter anymore. But anyway, here he is. And this is a guy with brown skin, for those of you who care what skin color someone is when they say something. But he's a freaking damn good American, I'll tell you that, regardless of skin color, which most Americans are, regardless of skin color. And here he is talking about mass deportations and how Americans actually just want the law enforced. We're not asking for much. Could you just enforce the law?
But the fact of the matter, Jesse, is that most Americans want basic common sense. It's really simple. If you want to immigrate to the country, do it the right way. Come legally, make contributions to the country, follow the rule of law. If you entered this country illegally and you're committing crimes, you ought to be deported. If you entered this country in the last couple of years, there's no argument they've established roots in this country, you ought to be deported. And so I think that we ought to just do a better job of drawing a distinction that 80+% of this country agrees on. Do it the right way, legally, that's great, make contributions to the country, and that's one thing. On the other hand, if you're going to enter this country illegally, we have no place for that in this country. We're going to stand for the rule of law. And frankly, most Americans I know from my state of Ohio to across the country agree on that basic premise. We stick to that, avoid the histrionics, stick to the facts, and we're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, guys, it's simple, it's clear, it's honest, it's true. It's interesting also, he's making a distinction. So he said, if you're a criminal, you got to go. So there's well, I get it, the bananas lefties, let's just put them aside for a second. No sane person thinks that if you're an illegal criminal, you should be here. So he makes that one distinction. Then he goes further. Then he says, if you came in the last few years. So the implication is, if you're one of the 20 million who snuck in during Obama, you got to go too. Then what he's basically saying, he did not say, oh, if you've been here for 20 years and you're paying taxes and you're working and you have a family, you have to go. That's at least offering a little, look, I get the people, I truly get it. The people who are just like, if you are here illegally, period, it doesn't matter how long you've been, like, I get the argument on that. And it's a tough one to argue out of, that you, like it really is, because the law is the law. And if you are here illegally and you are breaking the law, if they get you, like, it's kind of unfortunate in some sense, like at a human level, if you've been here for 20 years and you're working and you're a decent person and you love the country and all that stuff. But if you are illegal, you are illegal. But it is interesting to me that he's making the distinction between criminal, okay, fine, you got to go, and most of us would agree with that. You got here during this mass Biden amnesty, you still got to go. But he's leaving out that other part because there at least is some conversation there. And I think most people understand that. Again, I'm sympathetic to the argument of people that are like, you know what, they never give us an inch, so sorry, you're illegal, you gotta go. Like, I am sympathetic to that, but I am also sympathetic at the human level to people who, yes, they took advantage of a broken system, but if they then came here and are doing decent things and working and they're not on the dole, like, is there something we can do? But we have to get these people out of the shadows. We have to get them, maybe you figure out some way that they have to check, I don't know, back pay taxes, something like that. But the point is, there's nuance there that if the left wasn't so bananas, we would be able to have a conversation about a little more thoughtfully. The reason we can't have a conversation about these things thoughtfully is because the left lied to us first, right? They kept telling us there's no immigration problem, there's no border problem. Then they said we're overreacting to it. Then they said there's a problem, but we need a bipartisan deal at the border to fix it. They lied. And then what do they do beyond anything else? Well, they use fear and emotion. So here's a segment on CNN. You may want to get here. I've got my tissues ready to roll. Puffs plus lotion, just in case I want to moisturize my eyes during this too. It's a heartfelt segment of a family that was illegal here in America, so they now have to self-deport to Mexico.
These are the main pictures from our house that we didn't want to just throw away.
Sasha Mendoza has the impossible task of packing up her family's life in Pittsburgh into a handful of suitcases.
It's really hard to tell a 4-year-old that they can't bring their toys or their stuffed animal. There's just not enough room. We can't put a stuffed animal and then have no pants. I've literally never felt anxiety the way that I have in the last few years here.
So you are saying bye to the U.S. for good?
For good, yeah. Yeah, for good.
Fearful of President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown, Sasha, her husband Julio, and their 3 kids are leaving behind the life they built together.
What are you the most excited for in Mexico?
The pool.
The pool?
And the beach.
And the beach?
Julio is an undocumented immigrant from Mexico. Sasha and their 3 children are all U.S. citizens. They decided to make the move together only moments after Trump took office.
There was an executive order being signed, and that was her call first. Said, like, what do you think about moving to Mexico? And I said, honestly, at this point, yeah, let's do it.
Man, it's so evil what the media does. Okay, the soft music in the background, and they really want you to feel sympathy. And I just laid out a position. I don't think I'm going to need the tissues for this. I just laid out a position a moment ago as I was talking about Vivek, as it relates to what do you do with some people who have been here and have a family and all of those things, right? So again, I can be somewhat sympathetic to that. Now, what I can't be sympathetic to is the CNN propaganda. So the propaganda, she said it's an immigration crackdown. No, it's an illegal immigration crackdown. They're not going for legal immigrants, but of course you can't say that. Then you repeatedly refer to him as an undocumented immigrant. He's an illegal immigrant. Now it's interesting, if I understood that correctly, his wife and children are legal, but the reason they're all leaving is because they don't want to break up the family, right? And so you're supposed to feel bad for them. Now, again, I'm sure these kids are perfectly great kids, and the wife is probably a perfectly lovely lady. But you did take a chance. You took a chance. And in some sense, I don't blame you for taking the chance. There was a door that was wide open that you thought was open, and on the other side of that door was a much better place to be. And you were right, except that didn't mean you could just walk through the door, and now you're paying the price for it. But interestingly, CNN will run those things where they really want you to feel bad for these people with all of the confusing sort of Orwellian language around whether they were legal or not and everything else. And I'm going to venture to say that CNN is not doing those things with sad music in the background about who was the 37-year-old mother, I can't remember her name, from Maryland, the mother of 5, who was killed by the illegal. What was her name? Was her last name Moran, if I'm not mistaken? I think it was Moran, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, we could go through the laundry list of people that have been killed by illegals or raped by illegals. Was that right? Rachel Moran was the lady, the young woman, 37-year-old mother of 5, who was killed by an illegal. I wonder, did CNN ever do a story on the husband now and the 5 kids who are the survivors of that with sad music in the background? Of course they didn't. So again, this is where the human part of all of us wants to be somewhat sympathetic here, right? Those young kids who are going to be ripped away from their friends and everything else. But their dad made a choice when he came here illegally, and the mom made a choice. And we are a nation of laws, or we aren't. Here's Stephen Miller, who has I would say, somewhat cold way of saying it, but he's right.
Nobody has the right to invade our country, fill up our emergency rooms, take our health care, take our jobs, take our tax dollars, live an entire life on free welfare. Every illegal alien family that Joe Biden and his party imported into this country that has 5 kids, 6 kids, 7 kids, who do you think is paying for their health care? Who do you think is paying for their education? Who do you think is paying for their food, their shelter, their housing, all of it? The working and middle class of this country.
Yeah, so that's just true. And you can see I'm really trying today, probably more than I usually do for some reason, trying to be sympathetic to the human side. That's not Stephen Miller's play there, right? He's a fact guy, and he's just telling you the truth. Who pays for this stuff? It's you. And we voted in a guy to say we're not going to do it anymore. So Trump is doing the right thing here. And as I keep saying with a lot of these things, he deserves a leash with us to do these things because he's trying the best he can. Or we can just resign ourselves that we'll have Democrats in office who will keep ruining things, or we'll have the half-assed Muppet Republicans who will say the right things but then always do the wrong things. So those are the choices we got, people. Pick one. Let's talk about Tax Network USA, and then something Trump doesn't really want to talk about, which is this Epstein fiasco. This month, Tax Network USA is celebrating American Pride Month with 10% off all services honoring freedom, resilience, and financial independence. If you missed the April 15th deadline or you have back taxes, don't wait. The IRS is ramping up enforcement fast. Penalties can hit 5% per month. The good news, Tax Network USA can help. Whether you're self-employed, run a business, or your finances are a mess, their experts know how to get results. Consultations are free, and acting now could save you from wage garnishments or bank levies down the road. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dave to get started. Take advantage of this month's sale for 10% off. Okay, so let's jump into a little Epstein update. I thought this was interesting from Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, now remember, Nikki Haley served as U.S. ambassador to the UN under Donald Trump, huge ally, then runs against him, not in the administration. She put up this tweet about the Epstein files yesterday, and it was really catching fire. She wrote, "Release the Epstein files and let the chips fall where they may. This is why people don't trust government. You can never go wrong with being transparent, redact victims' names, but release the rest." I saw that and I retweeted and then I wrote this. "My guess is that this is what Bongino wants done and ultimately what will/should happen." So just leave that up for a second. What she's saying there is whatever these files are that we've been told exist, right? That's what Pam Bondi told us. You redact the names of the victims, but whatever else exists, and that's the question. That still is the question that Bondi has to answer. What did you mean by files? Do you have a list that shows Bill Clinton flew here on this day? This is the girl that was given to him, and there's video of it or whatever. The problem with the word files is we just don't know what the freak it means. But Nikki is completely right. This is what Trump promised. We want the most transparency possible. You want to protect the victims and go from there. Here's Trump basically saying, in effect, I hear the base, and anything that's credible, we're going to put it out there.
I think really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going. But credible information, let them give it. Anything that's credible, I would say, let them have it.
Yeah, I do think that Trump is telling the truth there, that anything that is credible, and again, we don't know what is in, or we, meaning you and me, Pam Bondi apparently knows, maybe Trump seems to know, or Bongino seems to know. We don't know what they mean by files or what actually is in there, but I do agree with Trump. Anything that is credible, as long as you're protecting the innocent, should be put out there. I also think that Trump is alluding to something that I think is also sort of interesting here. Whatever these files are, the previous DOJ, the previous administration, Obama administration, Biden administration, all of the corrupt people, they had access to all of these things. Are we supposed to trust them, knowing all the things that they do? God knows what they did with these files. And I think Trump, having learned all of the lessons of the past and the Steele dossier and everything else, Trump is kind of like, who knows what they did to them? So if you just dump all of this stuff, who knows if it's even legit? Like, that's actually a legitimate thing, I think, for Trump to worry about. Here's Pam Bondi talking about, talking or not talking about Dan Bongino and confirming that she is staying on as Attorney General.
As the Attorney General, is there disruption at the leadership of DOJ and the FBI with your relationship with Dan Bongino that is affecting the operations?
No, I'm not going to talk about personnel matters. No, I was with Director Patel all morning, and we are committed to keeping America safe, making America safe.
On this matter of fentanyl, which is a priority clearly for the DEA, Department of Justice, are you confident you're going to still be here to execute this because there's so many people calling for change at the Department of Justice? I'm going to be here for as long as the president wants me here, and I believe he's made that crystal clear. It's 4 years, well, 3.5 now, right? We've got 6 months in, and it feels like 6 years. But I was with Director Patel this morning, and we are working on fighting violent crime. We are working on all these issues that we deeply care about to make America safe again and get these drugs off our streets.
All right, again, so I don't know her. any more than you know her. But what I do know is Trump is backing her. I do know Dan Bongino, as I've pointed out. There's every reason to think that Bongino and Kash Patel and Bondi and Trump actually do care about this and don't want children to be trafficked and all of those things. But something feels a little bit weird here. Here's Trump addressing that, which I referenced a moment ago. Like, if these files, to whatever extent these files exist or are real, well, they were just in the hands of Comey, Obama, Biden, a whole bunch of people that we don't trust. And I think that that's what Trump is worried about. So take a look.
The Epstein case, do you agree with her, sir?
The Attorney General's handled that very well. She's really done a very good job. And I think that when you look at it, you'll understand that. I would like to see that also.
Did she tell you, what did she tell you about the review? And specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing. And in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen, and I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden, we went through years of that with the Russia hoax, with all of the different things that we had to go through. We've gone through years of it, but she's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release.
Okay, so first off, I love that he said that at the end. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release. I think that is him being as clear as he can, like, don't listen to me. She's the Attorney General. She should do what she's supposed to do. That's number one. Number two is the more important thing, though, which I think is this idea that if the files were there and we know all of the tricks that these motherfuckers did to take out Trump, whether it was to make sure his businesses couldn't exist in New York, or whether it was that he was a Russian agent, or that he was an insurrectionist, or everything else, he is leery of whatever may or may not be in the documents. The problem, I think, is that the base, or a certain set of the base, or at least the Twitter base, is so riled up about this that it's like, will there be an answer? Like, if you release everything, if you do exactly what Nikki said right there, which again, I agree with, you redact all the names, but you release everything, if it doesn't have the smoking gun, will it stop the people who are down that rabbit hole from further trying to destroy Trump? And that would be the worst of all situations here, I think. Here's Trump on Truth Social. He really kind of unleashed on this. This is just from this morning. The radical left Democrats have hit pay dirt again, just like the fake and fully discredited Steele dossier, the lying 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, which the Dems swore had come from Russia. No, it came from Hunter Biden's bathroom. And even the Russia scam itself, a totally fake and made up story used in order to hide crooked Hillary Clinton's big loss in the 2016 presidential election. These scams and hoaxes are all the Democrats are good at. It's all they have. They are no good at governing, no good at policy, and no good at picking winning candidates. Also, unlike Republicans, they stick together like glue. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. And my past supporters, and it's interesting he wrote my past in capitals, have bought into this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic left for 8 long years. I've had more success in 6 months than perhaps any president in our country's history. And all these people want to talk about with strong prodding by the fake news and the success-starved Dems is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work, and don't even think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success, because I don't want their support anymore. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. That's really interesting. You don't see Donald Trump go after whatever you want to call that, the base or the Twitterati or whatever that is. You don't see him going after that often. Now, there's something also interesting brewing here, which is that the Democrats are suddenly, I read you the tweet, we showed you the video yesterday from Democrat Ro Khanna, one of the few Democrats ever willing to talk to me, saying that Congress should try to get the administration to release all the Jeffrey Epstein documents. Now, think about that. Is Ro Khanna and the Democrats who suddenly want these things released, even though they had the House and the Senate and the presidency for 4 years under Biden and could have done it, they suddenly want it done, and they're literally saying it in their own words, well, the MAGA base wants it. So the very same people you think are racists and blah, 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 suddenly they want something, but it might help you. So are the Democrats suddenly really good guys here? That's what Trump is pointing out. You're doing the bidding of the Democrats. And I would say this feels a little bit to me like Admiral Akbar in Return of the Jedi. It's a trap. That is not to say you don't release whatever documents can be released while protecting the innocent, but there's just something weird suddenly happening. I hope I've illustrated that clearly enough here. And speaking of something weird, well, here is something certainly weird. This is from Colin Rugg Report. The Jeffrey Epstein prison video that was released by the DOJ had almost 3 minutes cut out, not the 1 minute like originally reported according to Wired. The outlet says the raw video was stitched together from in Adobe Premiere Pro from 2 files. Further analysis shows that one of the source clips was approximately 2 minutes and 53 seconds longer than the segment included in the final video, indicating that footage appears to have been trimmed before release, Wired reported. The file was actually edited and saved several times over a period more than 3.5 hours on May 23rd, 2025. Both analyses found that the 2 clips labeled blah, 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 and blah, 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 .mp4 were stitched together. The first clip's 4 hours, 19 minutes and 16 seconds long, but only the first 4 hours, 16 minutes and 23.368 seconds appear in the published version, meaning nearly 2 minutes and 53 seconds were cut from the end. According to the metadata, the cut occurs just at about 11:58 and 58 seconds p.m. So, okay, I don't even know if that's true, right? That's Wired reporting on something. So it's, again, this is one of those things where it's just so hard to figure out who to trust. So I will end the segment by saying this. I trust Donald Trump at the moment. As much as I trust anyone else, I do trust the guy who has called out all of the hoaxes and been right about all of the big stuff. On a personal level, I trust Dan Bongino. I have no reason not to trust Kash Patel. Bondi, I think, screwed up with some of her language as around the files, but hopefully they will clean up some of the mess. And I believe that when Donald Trump said the Attorney General will release what she thinks she should release, hopefully that will clean it up. And again, I would last say with this, I just hope that whatever the resolution here is, like if we get to the truth, I hope the truth will be enough for a certain set of people. But be careful what you ask for, because if the Democrats are clamoring for this thing, how do you think that's going to work out for Trump? And then thus, how do you think it's going to work out for the country? Let's talk about 1775 coffee for a moment, and then we'll get to some other good stuff, which is that the DOGE cuts are officially going through. You've seen the hype. You've watched the launches sell out. Now's your shot. 1775 Coffee just dropped their limited starter kit, and only 1,000 units are available. This isn't some dinky sampler pack. It's a full-force caffeine arsenal. A bold, dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check. A smooth medium roast that's strong without the bitterness. And a Vitality mushroom coffee that delivers clean energy with zero crash. You're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. The starter kit has $170 worth of coffee and gear for just $99. If you've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and wondering if it's the real deal, spoiler alert, it is. Head on over to 1775coffee.com/Rubin and grab your starter kit before it's gone. That's 1775coffee.com/Rubin. Okay, so all of that stuff aside, again, there's a lot of good things happening right now. And yesterday, J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, I would say the unsung hero of this administration, because we focus on a lot of other people doing a lot of good stuff all the time, he broke the tie in the Senate. It was 50-50 because I believe it was 3 Republicans decided to vote with the Dems on whether to advance the DOGE cuts. And we'll get their name. Can I get the names of the Republicans that did not vote for it while we show this video? And here is J.D. Vance advancing the tie in the Senate so that the $9 billion in DOGE cuts actually went through.
If not, on this vote, the yeas are 50 and the nays are 50. The Senate being equally divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative and the motion is agreed to.
Lisa Murkowski. And Murkowski. Okay, so sorry, we were just getting the numbers there. So there's JD pushing through. So the $9 billion DOGE cuts did go through. The 3 Republicans who didn't go for it were Susan Collins, Mitch McConnell, and Lisa Murkowski, right? So that's just an interesting side note. I think they'll probably have to, McConnell, how many more times? McConnell, when he runs again in 20 years, might have to pay the price for it. We'll see about that. Here's a little more info from the New York Post. VP J.D. Vance cast 2 tie-breaking votes in the Senate Tuesday to move forward a $9.4 billion recessions package, which would rip federal funding from PBS and NPR in the upper chamber. The package, approved by the House of Representatives last, Joseph, you got to move a little faster for me. Nope, too fast. Sorry, go back a little bit on the prompter there. Go down a little bit, down. Which would rip federal funding, from PBS and NPR in the upper chamber. The package, approved by the House of Representatives last month, accesses approximately $8.3 billion previously allocated to the U.S. Agency for International Development, which of course is USAID, and $1.1 billion to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, CPB, which partially finances NPR and the Public Broadcasting Service, that's PBS. A proposed $400 million cut to the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief program is expected to be scrapped via an amendment before the bill comes up for a final vote. So look, this is standard DOGE stuff. Why are we funding these things? Do you think that Oscar the Grouch, without funding from your tax dollars, would have to live in a garbage can? That's completely crazy. Why are these things so important? Why are we funding all of these programs all over the world and all of these NGOs that end up becoming left-wing activist organizations and everything else? It's a good question to ask. Well, apparently we're going to fund them to the tune of $9 billion less than we have been funding them. However, that's making some people very upset. Here is Lady Eyelashes, who got a, what do you call it? Not a perm is when they fluff their hair. What would you do with like a, I guess like a hot iron? She did, I don't know, but what do girls do when they're straight? She just straightened her hair, but she still got the crazy eyelashes, and she really wants people in Iraq to know about the Muppets.
When you start to talk about whether or not Sesame Street or anything else that's on NPR or PBS ends up in other places, this is so that there is not this warped thought process about the Western world or about the United States. We're talking about making sure that we don't end up allowing people to be radicalized against us because they have a terrible vision of us, because they may be in a government that actually puts out bad, terrible propaganda about us.
Lady, you wouldn't want people to have a warped thought process about the United States of America. You have built your career. You are on television every single day telling us how evil America is, how bad capitalism is, how racist we are, how Donald Trump is a white supremacist, yada, yada, yada. So while it might be concerning that a few people in Iraq don't like us, that's probably true, and that perhaps the Muppets might be able to convince them otherwise, how about you stop doing that on our shores, you yourself? As per whether the Muppets and Sesame Street are able to transition people from America-hating whatevers to America-loving wonderful people, perhaps, I'm a little out of the loop on what's going on with Sesame Street, but largely we know that most of these things end up becoming kind of lefty programming things, but it doesn't matter. That does not mean we have to fund it. And if it is so worthwhile to make sure that we are able to send Sesame Street videos to Iraq, if the government doesn't want to do it anymore, how about you try this, Lady Eyelashes, which would be the name of someone on Sesame Street, actually. There's Lady Eyelashes. She's blowing Kermit. Well, I don't know why. That seemed a bit much. Apologies to Miss Piggy. Kermit would never do that. But if you care about that stuff that much, and if you think it's so important that Iraqi children watch American Sesame Street so that they don't end up blowing up our buildings, then why don't you just get a couple of your rich friends, there's an awful lot of rich Democrats, and get it sent over there? Why do people who don't want to pay for it have to pay for it? The thing is that those of us who love the country, we're focused on fixing the country, and that's what Donald Trump is doing right now. And he just got $92 billion to flow into Pennsylvania for things that actually matter, like AI and energy.
This afternoon, 20 leading technology and energy companies are announcing more than $92 billion of investments in Pennsylvania. And if you want, we could probably get them up. Let's talk to them right now. But this is a really triumphant day for the people of the Commonwealth and for the United States of America. We're doing things that nobody ever thought possible.
So again, we're doing things right now. Like, we are actually reinvesting in the country. We are going ahead and leading on AI and figuring out new ways to innovate as far as innovation, as far as energy and everything else. Actually, I just got invited yesterday. I think I'm going to go. It's on the 23rd. I was invited to the White House for is it an AI conference? It's an AI conference, right? On the 23rd, it's an AI conference, and Trump is going to speak, and I think the All In podcast guys are going to be there, and we'll see if we can get a couple interviews and things. But Trump is trying to bring together the widest tent group of people to fix the country, while you're mostly concerned that we're not sending Sesame Street to Iraq anymore. And then there's other things that we're doing as it pertains even to the health of Americans who are mostly fat and lazy and tired and confused and can't get a boner. Well, you know what we're doing with them? We're getting some artificial dyes out of their ice cream, thanks to Bobby Kennedy. Here is the CEO of Turkey Hill Ice Cream talking about how 90% of the ice cream producers right now are going to remove artificial dyes.
Thank you, Secretary Rollins, Secretary Kennedy, Commissioner McCary, for the opportunity to speak today about this significant voluntary industry-led commitment to remove certified artificial colors from commercially produced ice cream products. I am Andy Jacobs, chair of the IDFA Ice Cream Board and chief executive officer of Turkey Hill Dairy, one of the nation's premier ice cream brands. Today's announcement represents a commitment by dozens of individual ice cream companies, from small independent companies to family-owned companies going back generations to large multinationals. We have all come together as the ice cream industry to lead major change and to make this commitment to remove artificial colors.
You know, there's a couple things here. So first off, removing the stuff. It's good, right? Like getting the artificial dye out of our ice cream that kids eat and getting the artificial dye out of the cereals the kids eat, that's all great, right? We all get why that's great. But the better part in some, well, maybe not the better part at a health level, but in some sense, the better part of what's going on here, did you catch what he said? Voluntarily to remove. Bobby Kennedy didn't walk in there and say the government is going to force you guys to do this. What he did was he got all of these people that were small batch ice cream makers, giant corporate conglomerates, everything that he just laid out there, right? He got them all to sit down, and then they were all like, okay, we'll all do it together. The government didn't come in and smash them with regulations or, say we're gonna break you up, we're gonna tax you to high hell, or the laundry list of other things that the government can do to force corporate compliance. They encouraged people to do it, and then by encouraging them to do it, so when they figure out ways, like you can use pea protein to color things, or you can use mashed up flours to color things instead of using these artificial dyes that are essentially poisons, well then it will start becoming cheaper to do it, and it will be good for the ice cream maker, and it will be good for you, the consumer. So this is the best type. What Bobby just did there, by talking about health, by getting it to awareness, it gets to a critical consciousness, and then you're able to sit down. These people, they're all competitors. The little ice cream guy is a competitor with big ice cream. And as long as we're talking about ice cream, do not buy Ben & Jerry's. It's crap. Those two retarded old socialist windbag America-hating lunatics, they sold it to Unilever 20 years ago for a couple hundred million, if I'm not mistaken. So they're not really socialists, only when they tell you they're socialists. And so you're just buying giant corporate ice cream anyway. I like Tillamook. What kind of ice cream? Anyone else want to throw out a shout out for an ice cream right now? Handles. I don't even know about Handles. That's Joseph's choice. I like Tillamook. I think they're up in Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. They make some, and I used to love McConnell's in LA, but I don't think we get it here in Florida. But anyway, this is all good, and as long as we're talking about some good stuff as it relates to Bobby Kennedy, here he is talking about how we're also going to investigate SSRIs. We're talking about prescription mind-bending drugs, and is there a connection between taking them and shooting lots of innocent people?
The school shootings in this country, the mass shootings, are unacceptable. And we need to be investigating why they're happening in this country. Why are we alone? Why is that happening? Why did it never happen before? Two of the culprits that ought to be investigated, and I'm not saying that we know this, but one is SSRIs, the widespread use of this class of psychiatric drugs that has a black box label on it saying may cause homicidal and suicidal behavior. And we now have a large part of the American population on those. NIH, the National Institute of Health, ought to be studying why is it that Switzerland, which has comparable levels of guns, has not had a mass shooting in 21 years, and we have one every 21 hours. Why is that?
So what is Bobby great at? What he's great at is being passionate about something, talking about it, and as I just said, then it gets to critical consciousness, right? So we all know that we have too many shootings here. As I say all the time, it actually has nothing to do with the guns. The gun is just the weapon, right? A hammer is a weapon. If I had a hammer here, I wouldn't just smash Phoenix over the head with it, right? But you might also be able to build a house with a hammer. So it's a tool, right? And a weapon is a tool. You might be able to save your family. You also might be able to kill a lot of innocent people. But we do know that a ridiculous percentage of these, especially young males that go into these schools and shoot these kids, turn out to be on these drugs. So why is that? And why aren't we able to talk about it? It reminds me of that unbelievably, it was one of the worst shootings that we've had in this country, that Uvalde, Texas shooting about 3 years ago, where the guy went in and I think he killed 18 elementary school kids and several teachers and administrators. And if you remember the video that night, we played it several times, of Joy Reid when she still had a job at MSNBC, and she opens up her show saying that this is all about guns and it has nothing to do with mental health. And it's like, first off, not only do you have no evidence of that, but I think by default, if you walk into a school and shoot 18 children, innocent children, by default, you have a mental health condition. Okay, so the fact that we're now talking about this too, my guess is it's going to have a similar resolution as the ice cream thing. I know fighting big pharma is a little more difficult than fighting big ice cream, big dairy. They're less violent, let's say. But I'm going to guess that by talking about this, we're going to get some answers as it pertains to why we're putting so many young people on these drugs, why we don't deal with the side effects more, and what the connection is between that and the shooting. We're almost there, but let me show you this video. So, yesterday we showed you several videos of Gavin Newsom on Sean Ryan's show, and we basically obliterated him, and I was pleased to see that many of you enjoyed that. But here's one more, because now he's going after Bobby Kennedy for talking about health, because he thinks he was talking about health before it was cool.
And so I respect Bobby, but he really turned on me early, and he flat out lied about some things.
What did he lie about?
He lied about, said, because Newsom got some, I got sick for 2 or 3 days, and he said it was because of a vaccine, and then he lied about what I had. He weaponized it. He misled. I was like, and I was reaching out going, brother, the hell's going on? And I saw him go down this sort of darker, good people can disagree. And I'm, by the way, Make America Healthy, that's California. I've been leading that cause for decades. There's no governor, forgive me. That movement started in California. I did the Skittles ban a couple years ago. My buddy Marshawn Lynch was all pissed at me because we're going after red dye earlier than anything. And all the folks at Fox were mocking me. Now they're all jumping over, patting themselves on the back for leading this ever. But so I've always admired that about Bobby. But on the vaccines, I think some skepticism, absolutely. But I think that there's a lot of mis and disinformation that is really hurt public health. It's my humble opinion.
First off, let me just reiterate one more time. Either one of two things are possible. Either all of his fake body movements and all of this stuff, all of this and this and this and this, is one of two things. One, it's the lizard that's within his human skin suit trying to break out of him. That's the one I mostly think it is. Or it's because of all of the cocaine. That's possible too, and maybe he could be a coked up lizard. I mean, anything's possible. As it pertains to any of that, maybe he did some Skittles thing. I don't care. I'll even take his word for it on that one. But the idea that Bobby's become dark and radicalized and he was doing it first, you've done more for health. You've done more for health, Gavin Newsom, the shithole that San Francisco has become, the crap factory that your state has become, with homelessness everywhere and drugs on the streets. When's the last time any of you went to Santa Monica? Whoopi Goldberg, what's his name? Forrest Gump wouldn't even go there these days because it's so bad. They're gonna close Bubba Gump Shrimp on the boardwalk over there because of the homelessness and the smell of piss everywhere. And remember, this is an oldie but a goodie. This is this is about 2 years ago, moments after I met the world's richest man, Elon Musk, in San Francisco. I went downstairs from the X office, and tell me, does this look like the picture of health in San Francisco? I took this video myself. It's like a Jack LaLanne class. It's like going to Equinox. Oh my God. Of course not. This man has put filth on our streets. He has drug addicts everywhere. He is a hypocrite, a liar, a lizard person, an evil devil worshiper, etc., etc. Here's Donald Trump on RFK.
Robert F. Kennedy cares more about human beings and health and the environment than anybody. And he's going to be absolutely, having him is such a great honor. I've been friends of his for a long time. And I'm going to let him go wild on health. I'm going to let him go wild on the food. I'm going to let him go wild on medicines.
Yeah, and we're letting him go wild. And what we need to do is let Trump go wild and keep fighting all of the right fights. And suddenly our ice cream will be healthier. And suddenly Newsom will disappear. And suddenly our streets will be cleaner. Our borders will be safer. The media will hopefully, it's not that they'll self-correct, but enough people will tune out and we will fix the whole damn thing. There's a little inspiration for you on a Wednesday. I'm always in a good mood when I play basketball on Wednesday nights. Thank you for watching. We have a post-game show momentarily at rubinreport.locals.com. See you tomorrow.